Hi everyone, Tbls here at Homesteading Ways, and today I'm going to show you how to make a natural solid deodorant. Okay, everything you see here is what we're going to be using. We're going to be using wax pastilles. Those are going to hold everything together pretty much. Clay, I'm using Fuller's clay, but most people will use kaolin clay, or really any kind of clay you use for a face mask will work. Baking soda, this is apricot oil, raw shea butter, coconut oil, and then a couple of essential oils. The tea tree, and then I have lavender here. And you can use other oils as well, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But I'm going to get started with the beeswax first. Alright, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to make like a double boiler here. You're going to fill up a smaller pot, well, not fill it all the way, but put it with water, and then I'm taking this 2-cup measuring cup and letting it warm up in there. You don't want your water to boil, but you want it to get pretty warm. If it's at a little simmer, kind of like how you see it wants to do now, that's okay. But if you still want to turn it down just a little bit, that's fine. So this is going to be making 2 of your standard size deodorants, and I think those are around 2.6 ounces. My containers are just a little bit bigger, they're 2.65, but this will do 2 of those. So if you only want to try one, then just cut all the ingredients in half, and there will be a list in the description for everything you need. We're going to start with a 1/4 cup of the beeswax pastilles. I'm filling mine a little full because my containers are just a little bit larger than the standard. And also, if you live in an area where you get high heat, you may want to add a little bit extra of the beeswax just so that your deodorant doesn't melt real easily. Or you can always keep the deodorant in the fridge too. And on a really hot day, it'd probably feel good to have a cold deodorant going on. But anyhow, the wax takes the longest to melt, so that's why we're doing it first. We're going to keep it in this water, and you're just going to keep an eye on it, stir it a little bit here and there, but in about 5 minutes it should be melted. Okay, so while the beeswax is melting, we're going to mix together our 2 dry ingredients. So that's going to be 2 tablespoons of the clay, and 2 teaspoons of the baking soda. Now the baking soda, we know, works great at absorbing and neutralizing smells. So this will work good in a deodorant. And the clay is like a super absorbent thing. So not only will it absorb odors, but it'll help wick away some of the wetness. Now remember, this isn't an antiperspirant, this is a deodorant. So you're not going to be completely dry with this, but you should be completely smell-free. Bacteria is usually what causes a bad smell when we sweat, and most of these ingredients will help neutralize any of that bacteria or keep it from growing in the first place. And this is natural. You know, you're not going to get any parabens or aluminum or any sketchy ingredients in there that could possibly cause problems with you. So just mix this together, and now we're going to take a look and see if that beeswax is ready. The wax is melted, so now my next ingredient to put in there is going to be the raw shea butter. And we're going to use a 1/4 cup of that. Raw shea butter is awesome for all kinds of skin irritations, or just to keep your skin healthy to begin with. But I started using it, I'd say 7-8 years ago, and one of my first projects, I guess you could call it, was making a cream for my niece's eczema on her hands, and it worked beautiful, and ever since then I use it in a lot of creams and salves and stuff like that. So anyways, you're going to put a 1/4 cup of the raw shea butter in there. Now it's kind of better if you can get this into smaller pieces so that it melts a little bit quicker, because sometimes the shea butter will take a little while to melt. And oops, if you get it into little pieces or smaller pieces rather than one big hunk like that, it'll melt a little quicker. Now you can get raw shea butter from a lot of different places, but I'm going to have links down in the description giving you guys different places where you can buy all these ingredients if you don't already have them. So now we're going to let this melt. I'll show you a little bit what it's looking like. You can see the water's kind of boiling there. But here. So we have, sorry about that, the wax is melted, and now the shea butter is going to be melting. It takes a little bit longer to melt that than it does the coconut oil. Shea butter will become a liquid at around 88-90 degrees. Otherwise at room temperature it's a solid, whereas the coconut oil will become liquid at say 76-77 degrees. So that's why I'm going to add that last. The least amount of time you have these on the heat, the better, I feel. It keeps their properties a little bit better than having them too overheated. So anyhow, we're going to wait for this to finish melting up, and then we'll add the coconut oil. Alright, we're adding the coconut oil. The shea butter melted fairly quick. Kitchen's pretty warm today, so I'm thinking that's why. So again, we're going to use a 1/4 cup. And I'm pretty confident this water's going well. The coconut oil's on the soft side, just like the shea butter was. So I think this is going to melt pretty quick. Alrighty, it's all melted. So now I'm going to be adding the apricot oil. And I'm going to use 2 tablespoons. I like apricot oil. It's a gentle, hydrating, moisturizing oil that works well with sensitive skin, and it absorbs really well. So that's why I like to add it to this, but also to body oils and creams. Very lightweight oil, doesn't have much of a smell to it either. Then we're going to add the tea tree. Now tea tree is important because it helps to keep that bacteria from growing and creating any kind of odor in the first place. But I'm only going to put 4 or 5 drops because tea tree kind of has a medicinal smell to it, and you don't need a lot of it in order for it to work. And so why add it if you technically don't need it, and especially if you're not fond of that smell, which I'm not. So just 4 or 5 drops of the tea tree is good enough. And then I'm adding the lavender. The lavender I'm adding not for smell, it's just that lavender oil is very gentle and good for the skin as well. So I'm going to do, geez, I'm not really counting here, but I'm going to say probably 10 to 15 drops. Now, you don't have to add that if you don't want to. That's just my personal preference. But you can add, you know, almost any kind of oil that you like the smell of. You know, some people are citrusy and they'll do lemon and orange, or, you know, some are more flowery, so they're going to do jasmine or whatever. Do what you like. But as soon as you have that all in there, then turn your heat off and just mix it a real little bit here just to combine it. And now we're going to add our powdered ingredients, the clay and the baking soda. And it mixes in pretty well. I'm going to pull this out. Be careful. If you need to, use a hot pad. The handle here really isn't hot because it was sitting outside of the pot, but you know, everybody's cups are a little bit different, but just mix it up a little bit there, and then we're going to set it down to cool for a few minutes. Okay, this just came off the stove, and can you see how drippy that is? Yeah, that's too thin, and it's also too hot to put into your containers just yet. So we're going to let it cool down for a few minutes. But every now and then, come by and stir it a little bit to make sure that the powdered ingredients stay incorporated. If you don't do this, sometimes when you pour the liquid into your containers, the powder, especially the clay, will settle to the bottom, and we don't want that to happen. So for the next, I'd say, oh, I don't know, 2 to 5 minutes. Depends kind of on how warm it is where you are. Just combine, stir it a little bit, and check the thickness of it. It's kind of tricky. You don't want it too thick when you pour it out, but you don't want it drippy and warm like this either. So we'll get back to you in a minute. Alright, I think it's cooled down enough, and it's definitely thickened. Now this is the tricky part, because sometimes after it starts to thicken like that, it'll cool down really quickly. So you need to stay on top of it. And this is also why I use a measuring cup, because it's so much easier to pour into the containers. I'll also have a link to where I got the containers from. Otherwise, you can just use any old ones you may have. I even saw somebody who used a glue stick. They clean that out. A bigger one, of course, but do what you want to do, but get it made. As you can see, it's really easy to do. It doesn't take a lot of work. Just a few ingredients, and almost all these ingredients you can use for a whole bunch of other things too. So it's not like, you know, you're just going to use them for deodorant and be done with them. You can make a lot of other things out of them. See, I have some extra here, so I might keep that and make another batch and do a couple more. So anyhow, let these sit for a minute or two, not too long, just so that they won't spill when you grab them. But then you're going to put them in the fridge to let them firm up all the way. You want to cool them down fairly quick. So once you get them in the fridge, keep them there for an hour or so, and then they should be good to go, and I'll show you what they look like. Okay, this is straight out of the fridge, and it looks great. Now you don't need to use a lot. 1 or 2 swipes is enough. It's very smooth, and it will melt into your skin. You don't need to use a lot of this. However, like I said before, you can use it more than once a day, especially if it's really warm outside. I've had no problems with this staining my clothing, but you might want to check in case you have something really delicate or sheer on. I just think if you rub it in really well, you shouldn't have any kind of problems whatsoever. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I hope it helped you out. Let me know in comments if you've tried a commercial natural deodorant and how it worked for you. And remember to check out the description box, because I'll have all the ingredients in there and links on how to purchase all of them, including these little containers in case you don't have any at home. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already. It was great talking to you, and you take care.